My name is Juana Estrada. I am the event manager here at Latinas in Tech, and I'm going to allow some time for all of our attendees to filter through. Feel free to add in the chat where you are joining us from. I'm currently located here in Chicago. It is actually really cold here in the city, so I'm trying to keep myself nice and warm and avoid getting sick. I'm going to give some few minutes for our attendees to join in. But again, I encourage you all to please add in the chat where you're joining us from. And also for those who are joining us today, we will have a portion of today's event for us to add questions for our panelists who will be joining us. To all of you guys who are in Florida and California, I am extremely jealous. This weather here in the city is not the best. Even though I was born and raised in Chicago, it's always hard. It's always hard around this time of the year with the cold. But as we're filtering in with people coming in and joining us from all over the country, I want to begin by just introducing myself to all of you newcomers. My name is Juana Estrada, and I am the event manager here at Latinas in Tech. And I welcome you guys to our event today, sponsored by our partnership with Salesforce. And again, just a quick shout out to our partner for today's event. Thank you so much to the team of Salesforce for helping us gather this event, and most importantly, for accumulating such amazing panelists that will be featured pretty soon. For those of you who are new to our network here at Latinas in Tech, we are here to serve you. Our purpose here as an organization is to provide you guys with opportunities like today's event to be able to connect with recruiters, with other Latinos who are in tech, who are looking to advance their careers, and to gain also representation, right? Within this industry, we all know how hard it is for us to build that network with other Latinas. And so we hope that with events like this and other partnerships that we have, that we are able to provide you guys opportunities to grow. As mentioned, for all of you guys who are new to our network and would like to become a member of Latinas in Tech, we will be part of our 1,700 plus network. That's a lot of women who we connect with on a daily basis, with over 400 companies who you have access to, whether that be for internship opportunities, career opportunities, or mentorship. And the best way for you guys to be able to be part of our network is just to log into our website, latinasintech.org, and create a profile. And that is exactly the only way and the best way and easy way to connect to the network. Just quick little simple steps of just going on, creating a profile, and then now you're part of our network. Some housekeeping rules for today. We just ask that, again, that you add your questions to the chat below for any of our panelists, and we will be able to upvote those as we go on with the event. But without further ado, I would like to now welcome our panelists to join us today. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hi, Juana.
Thank you so much. And yeah, so I would like to kick it off by allowing you guys to quickly introduce yourself to our guest today. And with that, I'd like to pass it to Hari.
Thanks, Juana. Hello, everybody. Hola. I am Hari Mendez. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am a principal customer success manager at MuleSoft, which is a Salesforce company. I've been here at Salesforce for just 1 year, and I'm based out of New York City. As I mentioned that I'm a customer success manager, so I just wanted to share really briefly what that entails. I meet and talk to customers every day, pretty much all day, every day. I understand what they're trying to accomplish by way of our technology platform. And then ultimately, my goal is to help them achieve their goals. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I will turn it over to the next panelist.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kai Nunez. My mother calls me Jacaira Nunez. I am Dominican American, born in New York, raised all over the United States. But I've been working with Salesforce for 12 years. It's a long tenure, the longest relationship I've ever had. I married my husband while I was at Salesforce. at a kid while I was at Salesforce. It's been a great company to me. I lead research and insights for Platform. Platform is where all of the gnarly bits of Salesforce happens. So think developer experiences and admin experiences, artificial intelligence, security, infrastructure, gnarly bits. And my researchers, well, they do research and they use and collect data, both large and small. And my large data, that is like large data sets or usage and telemetry data or large scale survey data. And by small, it's like one-on-one interviews with people to find out what's working, what isn't with our product and with our experiences so that we can give direction to our executives so they can make a better product and experience for our customers writ large. And that's a little bit about me, and I'm sure I'll be able to talk more. I'll hand it over to our next panelist.
Thank you so much, Kai. Jill, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jill Santos. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm currently located in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm born and raised in Queens, New York. Personally identify as a white Latina. I'm half Irish, half Puerto Rican. And I'm currently a regional vice president in marketing cloud at Salesforce. And I've been in sales for about 10 years now, and I've been at Salesforce for 3 come March. I currently run our small business, retail, and consumer goods team selling our robust marketing products. And yeah, that's me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Jill. Evie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Evie Torres. I'm a product manager at Salesforce. And to be a little bit more specific, I work for the industries organization of Salesforce as a part of the Health Cloud product management team. As a PM or as a product manager, I focus on building products for our healthcare customers, currently focusing on pharmacy and medication management. And I joined Salesforce a little over a year and a half ago. I'm going on my 2 years as part of an acquisition. I remember it was last August, well, not last August, 2 Augusts ago. And like most of our panelists that are here today, I take full advantage of our success from anywhere, work from anywhere culture at Salesforce because I get to live in sunny Miami, Florida.
So jealous. But I'm very happy to have you on our panel list today. And last but not least, Ty, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Thay Veloso, which is short for Tayane. For the Brazilians on the call, yes, I'm originally from Brazil, born and raised, but I've been living in the US for about 20 years, and I've been in the tech industry, very similar to Jill, for about 10 years, and 3 years at Salesforce as well. I started my career as a BDR, and then I moved to sales account manager, and today I am a sales manager at Salesforce, and truly excited to be here and helping you throughout this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, ladies. And I am looking forward to hearing also all the questions that we're filtering in. So just a reminder, utilize the chat if you have any questions for our panelists, and we'll have somebody upvote those for us throughout the discussion. But let's get started with this discussion. As you know, this webinar is focused on the importance of human relationship in the tech industry. And we know that Salesforce is all about connections with the customers and the companies. I wanted to begin by asking you guys about what do you think is personally the importance to bring technology and human relationships? I want to turn this to beginning with Hadi. What are your perspectives on that?
Sure. Well, I shared earlier that I am a customer success manager. So I'm going to try and answer this question through that lens. And first and foremost, I would say that, customers and colleagues are people, in the very basic sense. And as people, they experience all aspects of being human. People get sick, they have children at home, they feel stressed and anxious. They have different points of view on everything from getting vaccinated to wearing a mask to whether they feel safe traveling. There's all kinds of different experiences that people have as humans. And so as a CSM, I try to focus on what I can do, right, to connect with the human on the other side of the video call or the phone. And, it can be something very simple, like being non-judgmental when someone decides that they don't want to get on camera. So, not asking why or where are you or like, hey, get on camera, but just like understanding that that's the decision that choice that person made for that day, for that time. But also, more importantly, I think, as a CSM, I am, part of my job is really to bring people together around common goals. And so that's, kind of the main emphasis of what I do every day, is bringing people together around some common goals that mostly have to do with success. And so, other things that I do in my role, and that I have the capacity to do, is understand when things don't go according to plan. So, I always kind of have like, here's what I'm anticipating the call is going to go like before I get on the call. And then things happen. Maybe the call gets canceled. Maybe people don't show up. Maybe someone wants to talk about something different. Maybe there's a production issue. There's a lot of things that could arise. So just kind of going with the flow and being very flexible in that regard. And then also paying attention to the small cues that might, give me an indication that maybe someone's feeling frustrated or has a concern. And, again, just checking in with customers, checking in with my colleagues. And that's actually kind of a really important thing, to check in, to ask people how they're doing, and to, kind of remind them that it's okay to rest. It's okay to, go away, get away, take some time off. And it's a good thing for them to be spending time with their families. So I feel like there was like, especially, with the holidays just behind us, some people definitely felt, I think, a little bit of guilt around doing that. And I feel like it's important for all of us, especially for me on my calls, to say, that's great. I'm glad you're going to get some time off and you're going to get to rest. I hope you get to, connect with your family and have some downtime. That sounds good. So that's how I kind of live, or connect, the human side of things with technology every day in my role.
That is very relatable, and it's important too, as you mentioned, to have that ability to be just supportive of people, to take time out as well. I want to turn the question also to you, Kai, if you want to give your perspective on it.
Sure. In my field, in research in particular, there's sort of two lenses to the domain of technology and the human experience, right? So there's the domain of, we collect data, and data can be anything, right? But it's super, super easy to say, like, data is an abstraction and it lives on a spreadsheet and it's a dashboard and it's not human. And there's no real empathy to data. But my responsibility and my team's responsibility is to actually weave in the empathy, because the other side of research is actually, like Javi, connecting with our customers, and connecting with our customers at scale, but also one-on-one, so that we can actually be their advocates and weave their voice and their narrative through our products, so that we don't lose sight of the customer as we're building our products. The ways that we do it on my team, so as to reinforce that connection, the human connection, is to ensure that as we're embarking upon research studies, that we really try our best to have as many representative voices in the room. And how do we do that? Is through our recruitment. So when we're recruiting participants for studies, at whatever scale that we're recruiting, we are very, very thoughtful about making sure that we are reaching out to not just cis white gendered males, but all of the community that we can possibly touch upon, so that we can get their voices and their feedback on our product and our product experiences. And as you can imagine, it gets harder and harder to do as data gets bigger and bigger. But that's our commitment as researchers. It's very important for us to be able to triangulate data from all sources. That's the way that we try to balance and counterbalance kind of connection between tech and the data that we use to make our decisions, and the human experience, to be sort of the voice of the customer, the advocate for the customer and for the users in our ecosystem.
Thank you so much. It sounds like the process is very considerate of all aspects, from the data to the customer experience. I would like to actually begin to talk about kind of those tech advancements that has helped that, that integration of all-encompassing for all consideration. What is something that you are excited about regarding advancements in tech in the world? Is there something that you're more cautious about or skeptical about? I want to actually turn this question over to Evie, if you would like to give your perspective.
Sure, absolutely. And I could actually relate to what Kai was saying about, designing products from the human perspective, like human-centered design. So as a product manager, part of my work is to do discovery sessions with customers and really understand their pain points to the solutions that they're trying to build, and how can we at Salesforce Health Cloud in particular build products that are made in such a way where the user doesn't really have to think much about the technology that they're using, but really becomes they become interacting with the product in a very natural way. And when it comes to tech advancements, that's actually what I'm very interested about. Is there's so many technology advancements, but different industries and even different segments within the different industries adapt technology advancements at different times and for different reasons. And that's the part that's really interesting to me when it comes to tech advancements. It's that adoption. To give you an example, so I focus on the healthcare industry. And in the healthcare industry, you may have advancements in research. Let's say, there's advancements in personalized medicine. That's, a hot topic at the moment. Imaging, you go to labs and there's all these, high-tech machines that, can take pictures of your knee, scan your body, etc. Research in science, genomics, and all of those advancements are there, they exist, but they're only experienced by a small subset of users. And those are the researchers, the surgeons, doctors, but not really to the end consumer, to the patients in healthcare. So if we look at a different segment within healthcare, we now start focusing on consumers or patients, and that's you and me, or even the front and the back office of healthcare organizations. We think of the payer organizations, the health plans, the pharmacies. We see a lot of manual processes and a lot of paperwork. Even though the technology is there, the healthcare industry hasn't necessarily adopted it. So think of, just as a quick example, think of the last time you visited a doctor's office or you had to make an appointment. For the most part, it's probably fair to say that you probably had a frustrating experience, and it was very time consuming just to make that appointment and to actually get all the information or paperwork that's needed to get to your appointment to see your doctor. So right now, from a product perspective or a technology perspective, we're at a point in healthcare organizations where these organizations are transforming the way that they act with the consumers, with the patients, with you and I. They're now bringing the experiences to the consumers in such a way that these are the experiences that the consumers are used to and are really expecting out of the healthcare industry, just that it's currently not there. And by currently not there, it's not that the technology is just not there. It's just that the industry has not adopted the technology advancements that are there. So imagine booking your doctor's appointment online without having to call the office, without having to fill, a form online that you get to the end and it just says somebody will call you back, and then you have to wait, that kind of that phone tag back and forth to be able to make that appointment. Having your doctor's appointment virtual through virtual care, so you don't have to commute, you don't have to be stuck in traffic, you don't have to miss your work meetings, and then ordering your prescriptions just like you would an Uber Eats order. That's really exciting, and that's the adoption of the technology advancements that are out there. So to the second part of your question of what I'm most cautious about or more skeptical about, it's not so much that I'm skeptical about it, but just an area that I find interesting that we're, just kind of monitoring is the adoption of artificial intelligence when it comes to healthcare. So AI is everywhere. There's chatbots, there's, we see AI in commercials, we see AI in our cars, on our phones, etc. But when it comes to the healthcare industry, it's a very gray area, because AI is not meant to replace the decisions that a clinician should make. They should just supplement the decisions that a clinician should make. And the adoption of AI from a supporting of the clinical decisions is something that hasn't taken off as much. So it's just an area it's interesting to see, where it goes in the next couple of years.
Wow, that was actually very informative, and I think you're absolutely right. As far as I can agree with you as far as the AI. You don't want to lose that element, right, of having that interpersonal consideration from somebody who is working with you in real time. But yeah, very valuable information. Thank you for that. I want to actually transition now on kind of the perspective of diversity and inclusion. How do you leverage data and other technologies to further diversity and inclusion? This is a very hot topic right now. And Kai, to your experience, I want to direct this question to you.
So as I mentioned earlier, with respect to the team that I'm managing and the way that we can intersect with diversity and inclusion, I'll talk about it in the workspace that I engage with, which is the sort of life cycle of research. And from the outset, as I mentioned earlier, we are very thoughtful about the way that we actually recruit for studies. So a problem statement is put forth either by us or by a product leader or an engineering leader to do some exploration around our product area. The researcher then ultimately has to create a cohort to collect data from in order to answer those questions. So it's of critical importance that that cohort is actually representative of the target audience that you are actually hoping to gather feedback from, but it's also our responsibility to look past that and identify participants that might be affected negatively by whatever product that we're building, right? So what are the unintended consequences of this product? How can we ensure that the people who might be impacted downstream, that their voices are also included in the feedback on this product? So for my team, that is critical. So that's one place where diversity and inclusion really plays a part. The other part is the person who's actually facilitating these sessions. So people like me facilitating sessions so that there's representation in the analysis of the data, that's of tantamount importance. So I make it a number one priority to create a very diverse team that comes from extraordinarily different backgrounds, that have different neurological experiences, from having challenges with typing to also being able to be extremely good at typing, like the exact spectrum, right? These things are important because we have to be able to have empathy, and without that empathy, and when you have a kind of monochromatic team, it's really hard to kind of service your participants and your product managers and engineers effectively. So those are the two kind of critical places in which I weave diversity and inclusion into the work that I embark upon. The last part is when I'm actually socializing. So after you've done all the due diligence of gathering the data, analyzing the data, having the right participants in place, ensuring that you have the appropriate voices in the data. When you're actually presenting that data, it's equally important to have representation there, right? So it's not just the weaving from the beginning, but also at the end, because if that information, if the knowledge that you've captured only stays within a small cohort within an organization and within your business, then those are the only people who can take action against it. So it's of tantamount importance for the data that we collect to be transparent, to be federated, to be shared across the organization so that everyone has equal access, so that we can make a joint effort. In my opinion, that breeds amazing product, amazing experiences, and a level of transparency that then can be sort of built into our product going further. So that's a little bit of my 2 cents in that space. Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much for that. That was very, very informative, and I agree. I think it's very valuable to have that inclusivity and have that transparency across all boards, not just from the beginning of the data research. I want to transition now to the question regarding identity in relation to that, right? Like, how do you, in the sense of being a member of the Latinx community, has influenced your work in tech, right? Regarding to from the research perspective to being part of the table, right, and part of that influential process. I want to turn this question to Jill. From your experiences, how would you identify your influence as a Latinx member?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as I mentioned before, my mom is of Irish descent. My dad is Puerto Rican. And so I identify as a white Latina. And I also obviously very much present as white. And so kind of taking a step back in terms of like the tech world specifically, but more so like the business world in tech. So like the sales motions, the sales functions, pieces like that. And being in the industry or at least in sales for 10 years, I feel like the community itself of sellers and vice presidents moving around, like it is a predominantly white space. And so as a person, I have struggled with really connecting or feeling like I have the rightful ownership to refer to myself as a Latina because I present as white. And I was afforded a lot of privileges because of that. And so by being at Salesforce, and actually I didn't mention before, but in addition to being a regional vice president in Marketing Cloud, I'm also the Latino Force, which is our Latinx employee resource group here at Salesforce. I'm the Latino Force Global Growth Chair. And so by leaning into that ERG about 3 years ago, I really looked around and I was like, wow, it's not just me. There are tons of other white Latin people, in my purview, and people on other sides of the spectrum as well. And so what I've kind of repurposed this anxiety that I've had, I've really dug into the idea that like it is my responsibility as a white Latina to show up in predominantly white spaces to advocate for the Latinx community at large. And I think that that's the best way for me to personally represent my Puerto Rican heritage, as well as like to really own that identity for myself. And what I found that it allows for is like a very friendly, approachable way for my white colleagues in those spaces to, number one, have a soft place to land that doesn't put burden on the actual greater community. So we have conversations like, help me understand who's in line in recruiting. How diverse is your candidate pool? Are you recruiting a lot of people that just look like you and have the same background as you? So really kind of challenging, but in a way of like wanting for us to do the work together. And then additionally, standing up and saying kind of tough stuff sometimes, like, and saying it in a larger scale and holding myself accountable, because I know that, again, it is my responsibility to do that in those spaces. And if we have time for it, I can kind of use the example of it. We were at a conference a couple of months ago, and I said, what is our business unit doing about ensuring that at Salesforce, what we're working towards by 2023, having 50% of our leadership be either Black or Hispanic. And traditionally, Salesforce's equality numbers around those two groups are relatively low. And so I kind of put our leader on the spot, and he handled it with grace and said, I need to do more and I need to understand more. But I'm committed to it. And that kind of commitment, it's like, that's the stuff that like gets me going, where I'm like, yes, we're all working towards the same thing here. We're all speaking the same language. But again, I've just found it really personally fulfilling to be able to have the support and like, I guess, the bravery to have those conversations in predominantly white spaces. So, yeah.
That is, as mentioned in the comments, you are a boss lady for that, for sure. I definitely wanted to ask Ty about this perspective, as she has Brazilian descent, and also too, just from your experience, like, how would you leverage your influence within that, within the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very different from Jill. I was born and raised in Brazil, and I moved to the US when I was 19 years old. So I very much own my culture. I'm very Brazilian in every aspect of it, and I use that to my advantage. Being in sales in the tech industry, and before that, I was actually on Wall Street, and being one of the only women and Latina in these environments, I use that to my advantage, because being Latina, being a woman, when you walk into a room full of white male, most of the times, you stand out. And that's usually what happens to me. I have an accent that I cannot get away from. And I have a personality that is different, and I sometimes dress differently. So when you walk into a room, you stand out, because Latinos, that's what we do. So being in sales, I've used that to my advantage to build stronger relationships with customers as well. In the Latin America culture, when you approach someone prior to COVID, when you greet them, it's usually like 2 kisses on the cheek or a hug, or it's something very warm. And in the US, it's a little bit different. It's like shaking hands, very distant. So I made sure I kept that culture in every single relationship that I had with my customers. And I would always do like the two kisses on the cheek, hug, and just that warm personality, which has really helped me build stronger relationships with my customers. And consequently, because I am in sales, closing a deal. So at the end of the day, being Latina, being different, being diverse, it has only helped me to close deals and to build relationships and to help my customers be successful and achieve all of the goals that I desire for myself and for my customers.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's also very important to think about those nuances, right? As you mentioned, like, the kissing on the cheek and how you present yourself. Those are very small little nuances that we do forget that are important to how we identify in our culture. I want to actually now turn the question to one of my favorite topics, which is ERGs, right? And I do know that Salesforce does an amazing job at working to push those efforts to have those employee-led organizations aid the building of community, educating allies within the organization, and also just driving that equality. I would like to hear from you guys about how you've been involved within these efforts too, and how they have transformed your experience at Salesforce. I want to turn this question to Hadi. If you don't mind answering your perspective.
Sure, thanks. So I figured let me give you a little bit of background, give you the landscape of our equality groups, which is how we refer to ERGs here. We have a dozen official equality groups that range, kind of run the gamut. Some of them include an employee resource group for our Black employees, one for our Latinx employees that Jill referred to earlier, Latino Force. We have a Salesforce Women's Network. We have Outforce for our LGBTQ plus employees, and so on and so forth. So we have 12 in total. And clearly that's a lot of places where people can call home. So first and foremost, I applaud Salesforce for that, because that's a lot of places for us. Personally, I am an active member of 3 of these groups, but I would like to make a very important note, and that's that employees do not need to identify as a member of the group in order to participate in the events or activities sponsored by an ERG. And I would actually argue that allies are a very important aspect of our DEI work, right? So we want active allies. We want people to be engaged. It is attending ERG meetings and events and activities is an important part of how allies grow personally. And it's also how we expand our DE&I efforts more broadly as a company. So wanted to kind of give that landscape and context to start off with. But I personally am the co-president of Latino Force New York City. So really exciting to be able to be in that role. And I've been doing that for almost a year now. And I feel like if I look at the role, I feel like there's 2 things going on. So I'll try to give you my perspective, my point of view. On the one hand, I think we're creating a space where members can feel like seen and celebrated. In a world where we're not always getting positive messages about who we are, I think that's very important. The space allows people to talk honestly about our realities, and to feel proud of our accomplishments as a people. So to have some orgullo. And also to celebrate our Latinidad. So I feel like that's one very important aspect of ERG work, is just celebrating and seeing people. I think the other really important aspect of ERG work is giving people permission to be authentic and vulnerable about their experiences. And so that could be good experiences or bad, right? But it's like their fullness, right? The experiences that they have, and give other people an opportunity to support them. So I'll give you an example. So if someone feels that they're being overlooked for advancement, say, I think ERGs offer a space where people can talk about that type of situation, where they can explore what's worked for other people, and where that employee can feel very supported in the moment. So it's really important. As we talk a lot about in DEI about being the first or being the only. It's very important to know that you're not the only one having a specific experience. So if you feel like you're not advancing at the pace you thought, it's important to know that there's other people who walked in those shoes and have felt the same way. And by the same token, it's important to know that those people found the way to overcome that, and to maybe they weren't advancing at the pace they thought they were supposed to either, but then they found the way to advance, and you can learn from that. So in my mind, the end result is that, the role of the ERG is really to create a space where people can be celebrated for who they fully are, while knowing that they're not alone on their journey, that they have colleagues who have their back and who will support them and who see them. And so I think it's just a matter, as an ERG lead, I try to strike that balance in the work that I do.
Absolutely. I can agree to that 100%. I actually want to also tie into Ty's perspective to this question too. Ty?
Yeah, I have a different perspective, because as Haiti mentioned, we have 12 different groups at Salesforce, and one of them, it's called Ability Force. What is Ability Force? Ability Force, it's a group that was created by employees for people with disabilities. When we talk about disabilities, those can be visible or invisible. It can be someone on a wheelchair, or maybe it's someone that is going through depression. Those are both considered disabilities. The purpose of the group is to educate people on what Ability Force is, what these abilities are, and to make sure that we help them feel included at Salesforce. With that said, I'm in charge of the global growth. So I'm in charge of helping the Salesforce employees participate on this group as much as possible. I also help create events. I saw some questions in the chat. Yes, you do need to be a Salesforce employee to be part of this group. However, as Andrea, thanks for answering that question, we do have there are lots of meetup groups out there and lots of events that happen outside. And maybe you can be one of the people who starts that group. 3 years ago, when I joined Salesforce, this group wasn't really happening in Atlanta. And I started with another colleague. I started a group in Atlanta. And I was the first one together with her. We were the first one to create events and start educating people, start making people feel comfortable to talk about their disabilities. And then after that, things kept growing. And today I'm on the global leadership team. And we have those groups all over the USA and also globally. And people are creating amazing events to help educate others and help people feel included. I grew up with a sister that has cerebral palsy, and that has been very impactful to me to watch her growing in a society, especially in Brazil, where people discriminate her left and right. And watching that has been very painful as a teenager, as a woman, as a sister. And I'm here to make a difference. And if I can make a difference at Salesforce, you can do that in your community as well. So I encourage all of you to start somewhere. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. When I started, it was just one of my colleagues and I. And maybe you can do that. There will be so many people that will reach out to you and want to be part of it. Trust me. Second, it has helped me so much at Salesforce and with my leadership skills. The position that I have today, it's not only because of my network at Salesforce, but it's also because of my skills and the leadership skills that I acquire while leading those groups internally. So when you least expect, it will open so many doors for you, and not only for you, but also for other people that really want to be part of something that is bigger than themselves. With that, thank you.
No, thank you so much for that. That was very, very powerful. And also to Hadi, too. I commend you both for your efforts in ERGs. I think it's something really important to create those safe spaces within organizations. So thank you both for that. So as we wrap up today's discussion, I have one last question to ask in regards to just the importance and the impact of mentorship and leadership within your life. I want to turn this question to Jill and ask her what leaders in your life stand out the most to you, and what was their impact in your personal and professional journey?
Yeah, I love this question personally. So at Salesforce, I've come into contact with like 3 women in leadership that have really like molded my ability to not only be an effective employee and just like probably a better person, but also to really make the space for that advocacy that I'm really passionate about. So to start, Meredith Schmidt is the was my executive vice president at the time when I started Salesforce, and she was really instrumental in making space for our business unit to really focus on not only supporting our employees that were going through really like the throes of understanding their own identity, where injustices lie in work, outside of work, and whatnot. And so there was like this care and consideration. And to be candid, she's a white woman, so she made this space. And then on top of that, she also was instrumental in really considering our customers and how many non-white customers and businesses we were working with. And so really bringing together a team of marketers and people who are going out there and striking and making really cool deals with non-white businesses. And so really focusing on both sides of the spectrum, not just internally, but externally. I'd also say additionally, Stephanie Glenn, who is my boss's boss today, that mention I had regarding the big room where I was at, where I asked a big question. She actually followed up with me afterwards, and I was really anxious. I thought she was going to tell me like, "Ooh, that was risky, girl." But instead she turned around and was like, "It was brave And it's the kind of conversations we need to have, but I want to be really clear that like you can be involved, but it is not for you to solve. Like it is a larger project, issue, idea that we all need to collectively work on, and that burden should not fall solely on you. So like good on you for bringing it up, but like don't stress yourself as being the only one. Like we all have to come together. And to hear that from her as a senior vice president, I was like, oh, so relieving, because I feel like sometimes things do get left to the people at the bottom to like organize and figure out. And so to hear it from the top down was really important as well. And then finally, our newly named or appointed Chief Equality Officer, Lori Castillo Martinez, has been really awesome, just catching up with her over the last few months, most recently last week, and kind of the same messaging of like, she's in this role and she's taking it seriously. And we're going to make sure that the promises we make as a company are upheld internally and externally in regard to the community at large. So some great ladies at Salesforce, let me tell you.
It sounds like there's a lot of empowering women at Salesforce. That's really awesome. Any last comments? All right, I felt like I cut you off right there. All right, awesome. So we're actually at our last couple of minutes of our event, and I actually want to turn these last minutes to our Q&A. So this is the moment now, ladies, and anybody of our viewers who have questions for our panelists to add it to the chat. We do have somebody who is moderating that as well and filtering those questions to us. But one of the questions that we have, and this question is directed to you, Evie. Question number one from our audience says, what recommendations would you give engineers to keep the human aspect of the product in mind when working on the more technical aspects of the projects? Ooh, that's a good question.
Really good question. I love that question. And that's one of the reasons that I actually started focusing on product management, is because with product management, I get to work with different disciplines, one of them being engineering. I've worked very closely with the engineering team to build the products. And I also work very closely with the user experience teams, the UX teams, and the research teams, such as Kai's team. And one thing I would say is, from an engineering perspective, if you do have access, if in your space, if you do work together with product managers and you do have access to a user experience team, it's very important to work very closely with them. So at least I'll give you an example of how it works at Salesforce. I, as a product manager, do my discoveries with customers. Usually there's a planning phase of a product, and then there's the implementation phase of a product. During the planning phase of a product, we do a great amount of customer research, customer discovery, where we're listening. We're listening to our customers. We're listening to their pain points. We're listening to what they want. And my UX counterpart is with me every step of the way. So it's both of us, the PM, which is me, understanding the requirements and the pain points. And from, my UX counterpart, it's really starting to think, as they're listening to customers, of how can we design our products in such a way where they're interfacing with the product in a natural way and we're meeting the requirements. So it's, just in terms of tips, it's really get the opportunity to listen as much as you can to your customers, have as many discovery sessions as you can with your customers. If you're able to, it's a little bit hard during COVID. I actually have not been able to do it in the last 2 years. But if you are able to do any job shadowing for your customers, where you get to really understand the different roles within an organization and what it's like to be in their shoes, that's really important. Just one example, this was way before COVID. For the company that I used to work at, this was pre-Salesforce, so more than 2 years ago. One of the job shadowing sessions that got done was really to see how case managers in a different industry, this was for health and human services, how they interacted with their systems at the same time that they were talking to their clients. And their clients were citizens of a city. And during that job shadowing, what they noticed was that even though the case managers had access to a system, they had multiple screens on their desktop, they were taking a lot of notes. While they were interacting with their customers, they forgot about the systems that were on their desktop, and they were just note-taking because they wanted to have that face-to-face interaction with their clients and be able to build that trust. So it's something, it's things like this that being able to shadow and watch and listen as much as possible allows you to really understand how to build products. And then we take that information, and based on that information is how you determine how the engineering team is going to implement the product. The third thing I'll say too is if you have, within your teams, and depending on who your customer is, you may actually interact with them in design thinking sessions where, you are kind of just being a little bit more innovative and, again, listening to the customer, seeing what ideas they have, because sometimes a customer will come to you and say, we need to build XYZ feature. And the reason why they need to build that feature may have nothing to do with their actual end goal, unless you actually put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're really going through. So my biggest advice from that, the biggest takeaway is listen as much as you can to your customer.
Absolutely. Take all in consideration, right? Our next question is directed either to Hadi or for Jill. The question says, what are some ways that you are explicit about your company's values, your DEI goals, and highlighting customer stories in company meetings?
Okay, I can start things off. And Jill, if you want to add anything, feel free. I think, well, first and foremost, it's important to say that equality is one of our 4 core values as a company, and it pretty much finds its way into everything that we do. So some examples is we have an office of equality, which is kind of a big deal. And we have many people that work on that team that are focused on everything from enablement, employee enablement, to content that we put out, to communicate the things that we're doing, to ERG support, to a whole lot more. And each year we establish goals for ourselves as a company that we want to accomplish around equality. It can be everything from like increasing, the amount of a certain group in leadership positions, or it can be more, general in terms of, that we want to have like, 50% all different underrepresented people make up 50% of our company. And so, it can be a general goal, or it can be a very specific one. But the good news is that what we do then is quarterly, there is actually an equality update that is public, so everyone can look at it, and it shares the progress that we're making against our goals that we've stated. So it's very informative, has a lot of detailed information about the progress that we're making. And like I said, it's something that everyone has access to. So I like sharing it with other people, especially people that are interested in joining the company, and they can see, kind of what we're up to and where we are from a DE&I perspective. So very valuable information there. And then, just like Jill mentioned earlier, we had a huge announcement from our Office of Equality this week. A Latina was named as Chief Equality Officer. So Lori Castillo Martinez is our Chief Equality Officer. That is a huge deal. I mean, like everyone on this call should be like, fist pumping, slapping, and just like getting really excited to have a Latina in that role. I can't tell you like what it feels like. It's kind of it's exciting. It's, revolutionary. We're trailblazers. We're getting the spotlight. It's about time for us to shine and show what we're capable of. It's a big deal. So that's something that happened just this week that we're all really excited about.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add here is just, and obviously be excited about Lori, don't get me wrong. But I think in regard to our customers and really talking about like Salesforce's values as they align to our customers' values and what they care about. And so I joined the Marketing Cloud space where we're selling to retail consumer goods businesses in the small business space. So 1 to 50 person companies, scrappy startups, folks that are trying to make a difference in the retail space. And it could be something like they're trying to solve sustainability issues, or they're trying to or providing PPE for masks and filtration and things like that. And so when we talk to those kinds of customers, it is the approach that we've taken and the thoughtfulness that my team really tries to put forward is it's not just about the product we're selling you. It's about the long-term partnership, what our companies could eventually do together. And I believe that we love aligning with companies that are charging after the same issues with us. We love aligning with all companies, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's like that kind of alignment from fundamental values from company, no matter if it's a 50 person company or it's Salesforce 70,000 person, that kind of alignment, I think, allows for even greater opportunity and more acceleration in those spaces. And so I think that's kind of also where customer stories and then aligning with Salesforce's values really can come to a head in a nice way.
Well, kudos to you for your team and just the organization itself for being trailblazers in that sense. I think that's amazing. So congrats to that, a huge clap for that. But also too, you're absolutely right. Aligning with companies that are having the same values as you is super important when it comes to that as well. We do have another question, and this is directed to Kai. It's regarding on how to break through into tech without a degree in tech, right? What advice would you have for anybody who is trying to get into the organizations of tech, and how to grab attention with the resume, or any tips about like connecting people or networking people within tech?
Thanks for the question. And I think that Alejandra and Monica both provided really good answers in the comments, which is any good manager is going to be able to balance a degree with relevant experience and make a decision that makes sense, because relevant experience is, in my opinion, equated to a degree, in particular in tech, because tech is a new industry, right? So it makes no sense to necessarily index on one or the other. It's an and, not a nor, right? So there's that answer. And from my perspective as a hiring manager at Salesforce, I can tell you what I'm looking for at Salesforce. And so, of course, it's the due diligence of the individual who's looking to break into tech, to do their research on the company that they want to get into, so that they know the language of that company and they weave that into their resume. I think that's of tantamount importance. Like, know your audience, build that into your resume. It's just like writing 101, right? In addition to that, for me, I hire according to people's strengths, because what I want to do is I want to optimize individual strengths. I want to weave and use their strengths so that they can be the best employee, the best person in a work environment that they can possibly be. So manifesting and demonstrating how you have delivered against your strengths and what your strengths are in your resume, I don't see enough of that. And if I saw more of it, I would be super jazzed. And so that's the type of stuff that stands out to me when I see someone who has had enough self-awareness to understand what their strengths are, or at least has taken like the Clifton Strengths Finder test that you can find online, so you can get a sense of what your strengths are, and then think about the experiences that you have and how you've manifested those strengths and document them, because that's what leaders are looking for. They're looking to use you and capitalize on your strengths. And it sounds terrible when I say use, but honestly, like all my whole team, they're all effectively extensions of me, but in their particular diamond way, where they can execute against what they do the best in the best of all possible ways. So I have individuals on my team who are incredible orators, and then I put them in spaces that they can actually shine in those spaces. But they've indicated to me that that's something that's a core strength, right? So put that in your resume. Think about the audience that you're trying to convince that you're the best suited for the job, and do your research on the company that you want to hire you, so that you can craft and weave that resume so that's a great fit.
Wow, thank you so much, Kai. I hope anybody in the chat took those notes, because those are some really valuable information to utilize, right? Those transferable skills and how to utilize that for your own benefit is super important. So thank you for that. We have one more question. This question is directed to Ty, and the question reads, how would you advocate for DEI with colleagues who do not understand its importance?
Absolutely, and that's very common, right? We're talking about diversity and inclusion here because we're lots of Latino women, but then you go back to your organization, your day-to-day job, and not everyone is as passionate by the topic as we are. So how do we engage those folks? So I'm going to share an example of what I did back in the days. Before I joined Salesforce, I was at another tech company here in Miami, and I joined this office with 80 employees, and there was no equality conversation in there. So I started a women's group. It was called Business Women Network Miami, and I started that group. However, because I wanted to make sure I engage all the men as well, it was a small office, so it couldn't be just about women. So what I did is I created events that was relevant for both men and women. One of the events that I had, for example, was called Finance 101. In that session, it was talking about the benefits that a company offer, how to maximize your 401k, how to invest in a Roth IRA, how to make the most out of your retirement plan, or how to plan for savings or college. It was a broad topic that men and women were interested in hearing about. So maybe one idea is to create those kind of sessions that you're not necessarily talking about equality or diversity and inclusion, but within those sessions, you create events and you kind of like talk the importance of equality and see how people respond. There are studies out there that show that companies that are more diverse, they perform 3% better in the stock market. So if you're a CEO of an organization and your company will do better just because you are diverse in your leadership approach, how come they would not be interested? Everyone wants to hear when it comes about ROI and performance, and they will want to talk about it. So it's finding creative ways and maybe joining sessions like this. What is Salesforce doing? Or maybe a smaller company. How are those small business talking about diversity and inclusion and bringing that into their day-to-day organization? So hopefully those ideas were helpful.
Jill, would you actually like to add one final point before we wrap up?
Yeah, for sure. Really quickly, just to really like piggyback on Ty's point here. I completely agree. I know that in Latino Force specifically, what we find more uplift and more interest in is not necessarily our events centered around Latino and Latinx heritage or understanding our diverse group and the different cultures and traditions that folks celebrate from culture to culture. But we also find that like programming around career development or understanding how to address your skill gaps and how to improve have an amazing job, because doesn't matter who you are, everyone wants to get better at that. And so to Ty's point, I think that really being thoughtful about, can we bring people in by providing a service or an event that services all, and then that in turn will allow for that diverse kind of culmination of folks working together. And lastly, I know we're at time, but Hadi, your reverse mentorship program kind of came to mind as well as Ty was talking. If you want to talk about it super, super fast.
Yeah, I'll talk about it super, super fast. 30-second commercial. We did a pilot this year. We decided to kind of flip the mentoring paradigm on its head. And we said, what if we had underrepresented people mentoring and coaching senior leaders on as it relates to DE&I? And we did a pilot. It was a 6-month pilot. We're done with it. P.S. It was very successful. Everyone who participated, 100% of the people recommended it to other colleagues. People learned a lot. People had courageous conversations. And that's a nice way to engage people who want to kind of do it little by little and are, not make anybody too nervous, too many sudden moves, but just kind of do it on a gradual basis. I think we had a lot of success there. Thanks, Jill, for calling it out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's really innovative, by the way. I've never heard anything like that before. Again, you guys are trailblazing for sure when it comes to DEI. But this wraps up actually our event for today. I want to just give a quick shout out to all of our attendees who are just giving so much love to our ladies. I mean, they're doing a phenomenal job. And I think that overall, this was a very successful event. So thank you to all of you guys today. Round of applause to all of you all. For anybody here attending and who wants to connect more with our ladies, I see in the chat that we've been sharing our LinkedIn. If you're comfortable with that, continue to share your information with one another. I'm going to leave this live open for a couple of minutes so you guys can gather that information as well. But also, too, I highly encourage you guys to go onto Salesforce career site to look more about internships and career opportunities that are offered to you guys by Salesforce. But also, too, on Latinas in Tech website, we offer a lot of information as well. So again, I highly encourage you guys to go onto our website and subscribe so you can get part of all of that information. And once again, thank you so much to Salesforce for this amazing conversation. I personally gained a lot of information, so I have a lot of notes that I will be sharing with my team as well. But again, happy to have you guys all connect, and I'll be leaving this couple minutes open for you guys to gather that information.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.